Hey guys, welcome back. Joe Brunsman, Insurance Broker to the Stars. Late night here at the Brunsman Advisory Group, but this is possibly the most important and impactful video I think I will ever make for the MSP community. I'm 100% serious about that. We're going to go through an actual lawsuit against an MSP. We're going to look at the allegations made against them, and I'm going to show you why a lot of these risk management principles that I've been harping on you guys about, why in practice those actually make a ton of sense. So let's go ahead and jump on into it. Now, some of these truths we hold to be self-evident, or they should be by now if you've been following my material. Just because it wasn't your fault, it doesn't mean it's not your problem. What you're doing is very difficult, it's very complex, and trying to defend that in court is just going to be damn near impossible. You're falling in line with all of your other white-collar professionals and peers out there, architects, engineers, CPAs, attorneys, trying to defend that in court to a bunch of people who weren't able to get out of jury duty and probably don't want to be there. It's just going to be really hard to do, even if you're 100% in the right. So if you end up going to court, you've already lost something. I made an entire video about this called Hammer Time or something to that effect. And you just don't even want to end up in court. I want to make sure you guys have the ammunition necessary to fight back against these types of claims. And just remember, you're going to be first in the firing line. All right, I talked about that with SolarWinds. I talked about that with Kaseya VSA. No matter what are they going to look at you guys as? Deep pockets. All they're going to know is, I don't understand how computers work. I don't understand how networks work. That's why I hired these guys. It's going to be an emotional response, especially when they lost a lot of money, and you're going to see that in this court case. And then once again, please get an appropriate tech E&O policy. It should be pretty self-evident to use the title up there, but you need to know the rules of how to use that tech E&O policy, or you're just going to end up wasting a lot of money, especially if you don't have the right things in the policy, if you don't know how to comply with the policy. So I have a bunch of other videos to assist you with that. All right, so let's go ahead and just hop on into this lawsuit here. Boardman v. Involta. Now, Boardman Molded Products, they're effectively a manufacturer, and they make, we'll loosely say, molded parts. Involta, you'll see in front of you, they're an IT service provider and consulting firm, and at least according to Boardman, they allegedly offered industry-specific services for manufacturers. Now, what are some of the allegations that Boardman has made? And as we go through this, I'm just saying these are allegations. I'm not trying to dunk on an MSP. I'm not saying that they're the worst MSP out there. I'm saying this is a great learning experience for all of us to see how we can try and fight back against these types of lawsuits and these types of allegations. So Boardman retained Involta for services including everything you see in front of you here. So what does that really mean? Boardman hired Involta to be their MSP, right? I think we can all agree with that. Now, some additional allegations. January 2018, Boardman experienced a security breach of its email account. Then, internal emails to accounting staff, along with modified Excel spreadsheets, were redirected by the bad guys. Multiple fake invoices, moral of the story here. They paid the invoices to fake sources, and Boardman allegedly lost $1.7 million. Now, I keep harping on this all the time. Contractually requiring cyber insurance. Could that have potentially covered those losses, or at least a good part of those losses? Yeah, it could have done that. That could have helped out Involta trying to fight back against some of these particular issues. So, Article 3 standing discussion, right? What we're trying to do when we're contractually requiring cyber insurance, we're trying to take the big dollar figures out of those lawsuits. And in addition, let's say they don't end up getting cyber insurance, even though it's in the contract, immediate counterclaim for breach of contract. All right, that's some solid ammunition that you have in your favor there. And of course, you can blame the insurance company. You can blame me. It's cool. There's a bunch of other practical reasons. If you want to know what those reasons are, there's a video in the MSP playlist on my channel here. Now, remember, just because it wasn't your fault doesn't mean it's not your problem. Now, you might be sitting there as an MSP and you're going, hey, our job as an MSP is to, we are not there to make sure that accounting is doing their due diligence on invoices. Hey, maybe there's some merit to that. right? Maybe in this particular case, Involta had no oversight into those internal practices and there was nothing that they could have done. But just because it wasn't your fault doesn't mean it's not your problem. When there's $1.7 million that goes missing, you best believe people are going to file a lawsuit over $1.7 million. Now, there's some additional allegations here, and these are important because these are going to pop back up. Once again, allegations. When the incident was reported to Involta, the ticket received only a medium priority rating. All right, I think that should be kind of if we pause here, maybe that should be a training tool for your internal staff there on what the priority rating should be when someone says they have this type of issue. Then, the day after the incident was first reported, Involta insisted that the breach had never taken place and accordingly closed the ticket. And once again, pay attention. These are going to pop back up. Involta suggested that boardsmen's rules related to security were too relaxed. However, Involta was in charge of maintaining a secure environment and was to set security rules accordingly. This was a task that boardsman internal IT person was not even permitted to perform due to permissions that Involta had set. Next, at no time relevant here too did Involta provide any proactive advice, suggestions, or recommendations regarding training, potential concerns, or any other topics regarding security or protection. But wait, there's yet more. You'll see this in front of you. You can pause the video here if you want to read through it. But what does this really kind of like get into? A lot of this you could say is like nitpicky things where they're just throwing everything in the kitchen sink. This is when I talk about the investigatory death spiral on some of the regulator investigation videos that I've gone through. Like you'll see at the top, boardman requested guest Wi-Fi access in February 2018, but access had not been timely provided, and then it keeps going all the way down. Right? What are they trying to do here? They're trying to show that Involta was just entirely negligent and was just asleep at the wheel, right? Those are the types of allegations that boardman is trying to make here to the judge and to the jury. So remember these allegations when boardman said, hey, we retained Involta to do these things? That's why I keep harping on the definition of professional services in your tech E&O policy. Because if any of these things weren't covered as professional services on whatever tech E&O policy Involta had, they could have been in some real trouble there. All right. Or if that hadn't come out on the application, then they could have had a material misrepresentation and maybe their insurance company could have looked at denying either partial coverage or full coverage because of what they would allege as a material misrepresentation. So once again, take this stuff seriously. Now remember when I said, hey, go higher, steps to success there, offer an additional level of service, even if you know they're not going to take it. Document that stuff in writing. High-risk clients, man, have them check yes or no, initial next to it, right? Make them put their underwear size in there and their mother's maiden name, whatever you got to do to make sure that they are entirely aware that you are offering additional services. Next, remember when I said, hey, use that offensive documentation? I know it's a pain. I know it's just, I'm a fellow business owner, right? So I know it's just yet another thing you have to do in the course of business. But I talked about, hey, start throwing out those newsletters, throw out the scam alerts, tie that in with additional service offerings, something to the effect of, hey, here's a ransomware event, or here's a trend with ransomware that we're seeing, or it's been documented in the news. Here's some additional measures that we may offer to help mitigate that particular risk. Please let us know if you want to talk about those services or implement those services within your business. Why am I saying that you do that? It's because of this, where Boardman was saying, hey, Involta didn't provide any sort of proactive advice or suggestions or recommendations for training concerns, other topics regarding security protection. You can just effectively wipe that allegation off the claim there by doing these types of things. All right, remember when I've talked about client screening and why that's so important? I understand that traditionally it's just not something you guys have really had to do, but the landscape is changing and you're facing a mountain of potential liability here. So remember when I said, hey, bad people bring bad problems? I talked about vexatious litigants. I said, hey, it's not really common to be sued, and it's not super common to sue anybody else in your lifetime, especially for businesses. And I talked about, hey, how many clients have I had where they got hit with a lawsuit, they got hit with a claim, and they start digging through this person's past, and they go, man, if I would have known that that person or that business had done X, Y, or Z in the past, I never would have agreed to work with these guys. Here's some sources you can use if you want to do your own background screening, or if you want to go out and pay for a service to do that, to screen those clients. Well, it's because of this. So you'll see right here in the middle, Boardman Moldon Products, just on and on and on and on. This is from 1989 to 1996, and then here's another one from 96 all the way to 2021. Now, maybe these are entirely legitimate claims, right? Maybe they were a defendant in all these claims and they were all baseless allegations and they won. And maybe all the times where they were a plaintiff in a lawsuit going against somebody else, maybe that was entirely justified. But I think in retrospect, if the MSP was here, they would have said, man, if I would have seen that just in the county court, maybe we would have had some second thoughts, or maybe there would have been some additional scrutiny placed against this particular client before we decided to do business with them. That's just Exhibit A right there for you. Next, remember when I just harp on having a contract? I understand you guys don't have unlimited money. I understand that margins can be tight, but it's a growing industry, but it's really important. And the one thing I talked about was make sure you clarify, like down to the granular detail, what is covered, what is not covered, who is responsible for what. Of course, blame your insurance company, blame me if all of a sudden your client's going, hey, why do we have this big contract? Well, it's because of this allegation in the lawsuit. Involta suggested that Boardman's rules related to security were too relaxed. Involta was in charge of maintaining, right? What's the position of the internal IT person? What are they allowed to do? What are you allowed to do? What was, down to the detail? What was Involta hired to do? Was it specific enough? Did they talk through all of these potential issues of having kind of this like co-managed environment here? It'd be interesting to be a fly on the wall, but suffice to say, clarify what is covered and who is responsible. All right, moving on. Remember when I told you guys, I went through this whole video about some considerations for you after a client's cyber event. And the three things I thought were reasonable that you should consider are identify the threat, contain the threat, and then refrain. Essentially saying, hey, this is what we've done. We've done our best to contain it, but this is where our expertise ends, and this is where the expertise of the attorney and the forensics guys that you should have in the contractually required cyber insurance policy per our contract, that's where they need to step in and really make that determination on what happened, if this is a particular issue, and how to remove this threat from your environment. Of course, as an MSP and as your trusted IT service provider, we are here to reasonably assist you with everything moving forward, right? That's in this particular video right here. Why was I harping on that? It's because of this allegation right here, that allegedly Involta only gave that particular ticket a medium priority rating. And then after the event, Involta allegedly insisted that the breach had never taken place. Now, I don't know about the internal resources that Involta have. Maybe they're a huge MSP. Maybe they're a teeny tiny MSP. I'm not entirely sure. But once again, trying to have that, contractually required cyber insurance so that the clients can get that third party technical and legal advice, I think would be very, very important here. And you probably could have wiped out the second sentence in that paragraph. As for the first sentence about something only receiving a medium priority, I don't think in the lawsuit it actually said what was communicated to Involta, but this is just another reason why you really need to sit down and just have training with your staff and communicate to them, hey, if we have a client and they think that something's going on in their system, okay, what priority rating should that be? Likewise, who needs to be notified up the chain of command, because obviously there's not only client issues here, there's not only a lot of money potentially at stake, but there's also a potential insurance issue with reporting of claims and potential claims, who has to know about that. I talk about that in other videos in my channel, but that's kind of some learning lessons here. All right, with that, I'm going to get off my soapbox. I just want to leave you guys with this quote from Sun Tzu. The greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Okay, so all of these things you should be able to see just in black and white now. Hey, these risk management principles, I know they're a pain in the ass, and I'm really sorry. And it's just yet another thing you guys have to do. And I know you're all very busy people, as am I, because we're running businesses and we have employees and client issues and all kinds of things pop up. But you don't want to be the guy named on that lawsuit, and you don't want to be the person sitting there going, man, if I would have known about their background, or damn, I really should have contractually required cyber insurance. That really would have saved me here. Or I should have documented this in writing. All of these things I think are going to be very, very useful for you moving forward, because there's a mountain of liability. There's a landslide of liability headed towards the MSP community. And the sooner you put these things in place, the better it's going to be, really not only for your organization, but actually for the MSP community at large. All right, with that, in terms of, hey, giving out security recommendations and proactive advice, hey, download my book for free, Damage Control, Cyber Insurance, and Compliance. That's where you get it for free. All right, let me make my head bigger here. All right, right above me, I'm actually going to put my Defense in Depth video for MSPs, where I talk more about these risk management principles. So you'll see that right above me. And then over there, if you click on my beautiful face, you can subscribe to my channel. With that, I hope you liked something, you learned something today. Like, share, comment, subscribe, send it to your buddies so that way they can stay out of trouble. Stay safe.